Paradoxes. Two or more ideas that are in conflict. There are large paradoxes in our world. Light, is it a particle? Is it a wave? Is it both? Is it neither? There are also smaller paradoxes in our life, and we can learn from those. And I want to share 3 of those today with you. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest. The 3 ideas I'll share start with letter A. Not sure how that ended up with my talk today, but the first one is act, and I mean that not as an actor, but as in taking action. This fall I attended a lecture from Rich Sheridan, who has a company called Menlo Park Innovations in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Rich's company does custom software, and they have an environment very similar to the Cube, very open, can rearrange the desk and offices at a whim. No one has an office with walls. And they do agile programming for those who are aware of software development. Two-pair teams, very oriented. And he was trying to make a company where you could learn everything that went wrong in Silicon Valley. One day, one of his employees came to him. She was on maternity leave and just ready to come back, but she was having trouble finding daycare or babysitting. And they started talking. And as Rich described this, he talked about hearing 2 voices in his head. One voice on his one ear said, "I know what you're thinking. You can't do it. HR will never approve of it." And the other voice said, "You're the owner of the company. There is no HR department." So Rich said, "Bring her in." And the employee was flustered, like, "What do you mean, bring her in?" Well, it's a noisy environment. Babies will probably like noisy environments. And they thought through it, and she brought her in, and it seemed to work really well. So he calls this running the experiment. And today I'm going to run an experiment. Now, it's not appropriate in all work environments to bring a baby or a pet in. There are many environments, though, where we can run experiments that don't take a lot of money, that don't take a lot of resources, that don't take a lot of time. And that's what he's getting at. Run the experiment, take action. So the first paradox is we have to learn to act, and then we also have to act to learn. The second A came partly from last week, advice. As I was going through my complaining about and fears about winter, I was given the advice to go buy yak tracks for my shoes. So far I haven't had to break the box open because the weather's still in the 50s, so it is still pretty neat out here. But there are times that we have to listen for the advice that's given to us, and sometimes we have to offer advice. I lead a Sunday school class, and there are times that it's interesting seeing the dynamics that happen within the class as people are discussing needs. And in the last couple of weeks, one mother said, "I know a specialist and consultant that I can give your name to and help with this." And we also have discussions of last week, another mother said, "My daughter has this condition with her eyelid." And another mother said, "I lived through that, and I know what I can do. Let's talk afterwards and see through this." So the second idea about advice is that you have to know when to request it and when to give it. And there's a little bit of play that has to happen in there because you don't want to give too much advice and seem to be too intrusive. And yet there are times that we have knowledge and background that we can share with everybody and help them out with that. So the second idea is advice. And the third idea is to ask. Also this fall I attended a class at IBM from a management consultant and a trainer, Ted Schick out of Duluth. And Ted's a pretty funny guy, very well organized with what he talks about, talking about change. And he's also a former Navy officer, and so when he talks about change, he talks about it sometimes from a military standpoint. And he titled his presentation, "When Elephants Dance, the Grass is the One That Feels It." That's a Navy saying, not an IBM saying. He also, being a former military officer, has started to do some fitness training. And he has a set of DVDs that he goes through on how to do fitness training. And at this point, I was still having a little bit of stiffness in my knee after my surgery. So I thought, at the end of the session, I'll ask him for one exercise that I can do to help out my hip. So when the class started to thin out, I went up and talked with him, and he suggested, oh yeah, one thing that you can do is to do a wall knee bend, where you would lean against the wall and go down and come up, go down and come up. Now, I learned from Ted not to do it in this room, because when Ted did it at IBM, he went against one of the walls, and as he slid his shirt down, he started to pull paint from the wall onto a shirt. And in this room, I don't want to be pulling paint off the wall yet, but at home I have a polished wood entrance between two rooms so I can get away with it, because I haven't seen any wood slivers go off from my shirt yet. But it has helped. And I wouldn't have learned how to do this without taking the time to ask him for one exercise. I figured one exercise, I'm not asking for the entire DVD set. I'm not asking for the entire package that he gives. That would be greedy. But one exercise to help, and he seemed very open and willing to do that for me. So the third idea is learn to ask, and sometimes we also have to ask to learn. Went back and looked at these ideas about acting and advising and asking. There was a fourth A that kind of came into play too, and it was attention. Sometimes we have to pay attention to what's going on around us. Not just, and it's also somewhat of a paradox, not just what's going on in our own lives, but what's going on in the lives of the people around us. And we have to be able to pay attention to what's going on. And I think Toastmasters, for me, has helped a lot in this, because I've learned better listening skills, better observing skills, better skills to prepare and to think through what I want to prepare. So I've now in my 8th year of this being in this club, and it's helped a lot to do that. So I encourage you, with what you learn here, what you do here, what you act with and ask and advise, to use the skills that you have here to help the people around you in your families, in your workplaces, and in your homes and your families. Mr. Toastmaster.